So good afternoon, everybody. So let us start our class today. So is everybody ready for the upcoming test 3 next Wednesday? Okay, so your test will be on test 3 will be on next Wednesday in your next class. Okay, so is everybody ready? Anyone has any question about test 3? Let me see. Okay, I sent out the study guide and on the discussion okay, nobody responded to these questions. That means my questions are not disclosed. That's good. Okay, test questions are not disclosed. Okay, so no one has any question? Yes. An array list is a dynamic array that is built in most of the programming languages, in Java and then in C#. Okay, but linked list is the list we are going to be implement, and the main difference is that in an array list you can hold or you can store only one kind of data. In an array contain only one kind of data, either an integer data or a float data or a string data. But we have shown that in our in our linked list, a node can contain different kind of data. A node can contain integer type data as well as a string type as well as a float type, but that is not possible with an array list. That is a good question. Okay, anyone has any other question? Yes. Can you please speak loudly? No, there is no options. Whatever we discussed, so whatever will be in your test questions, you have to write that way. So if you are asked to, for instance, this one to implement, it says clearly says that a single linked list. You cannot implement that by an array list. In an array list, you cannot have a node. For instance, we have a node here. I can add any mode. I have only one type integer. For simplicity, we did only one type of data, integer type data ID. I can add name, string type. I can add float type weight or height. Okay. So for our test, we are specifically will be testing you for linked list, stack, and queue. No array list is here. Okay, anyone has any other question? Yes. Do we have file IO operation for this test? What does this says here? Okay, it says week. The content of the week says 6 to 9. Yes. So on the week 6 to 9, we did not have file IO operation. Even we do not have exception handling that we covered last week for your this test. Yes. What is your question? Okay, so in your test, if you are given your own node structure, if you are given, for instance, in this example, if you are given your own node, our own node, you have to use this node. You cannot modify this node. You have to write your append method, prepend method, move fast node method, remove fast node method. This is the method you need to implement, not the node. Node is defined, right? This is the simplest node I have added here for a linked list. Only integer type. But in my class, I showed both integer type and string type operation, right? If you understand my class node, then this is very simple. Okay, in our test day, we have some restriction, new restriction. You cannot use any earphone. You cannot use any Apple Watch. You cannot use any calculator or something that you could take picture. Okay, be careful. Last time I announced that clearly, and it is already written on the exam paper, but still some of you violated the rules. Okay. So this time, if we found someone, if we find someone, you will get totally 0, and you will fail in this course. And there is a restriction also. You cannot use hoodie in this test. Be careful in the coming test. So okay, so if there is no other question, then we will go through our next chapter, next topic, file input output operation. Okay, file input output operation is an interesting thing, and it is a high level programming concept. So far the program we discussed with local some variables. Okay, that variables actually work as a transient variable. Whatever data we stored in our program, so apparently works as long as the program is running. After you quit your program, your data or variables do not exist in your memory. So you cannot retrieve that. Okay. For instance, whatever program we discuss, even array or array list, for even this array, whatever data we put in this array, in this grid array, this grid array will have its existence during program runtime, and the data will be stored in computer temporary memory, RAM. And when you quit your program, this data will be gone. But sometimes we need to store our data or result of our program output permanently in a persistent way in our computer hard drive or any other permanent storage device. In order to do that, we need to understand file input output operation. That means you need to open a file and you need to store your input data or output result into a file. So that we call file operations. So in order to do that, we need to understand some input output operations and as well as some file IO operations, file input output operations. Okay. There are some, it's called the input stream or input methods that you are familiar with so far. For instance, the read line method, the scanner method, scan method. Okay. These are some of these methods. So actually these are classes. These classes have some methods, and these methods are used to use input device or scanner to input some data. And there are some out. These are called actually input stream. And there are also output streams. For instance, write line, println, console, println. Actually, so this is the output stream or output class. There are some methods over here in this output stream classes that you are already familiar with. For instance, the println method, write line method, print method, write method. Actually, although for the input output operations, these are needed for all programs, but you will see that in most of the books these chapters are added at the end of the book because these are really critical. There are a lot of other things that are related to input operations and output operations. There are some built-in classes and built-in methods. You have to use these and you have to understand their uses. This is why these chapters are added at the end of the book, of all books. These are really tough, sometimes something are difficult, but so far whatever knowledge you have in programming, it should be easier for you to understand. So this slide says the processes for a traditional file operation. That means you will open a file using file stream. There are several modes to open a file. Either you want to open a read mode, that means you want to read from an existing file. There is another mode, it's called write mode. For instance, you will open a file and then you will save something in the file. That is called write mode. And there is called append mode. I think you are familiar with append. Append mode means you are adding something at the end of some existing data. Okay. And this create operation, that means create a new file, and then when you open a file, then you write on it or you read from that, and finally after your read or write operation, you close that file. So mainly there are three operations, three steps of a file operation. You open the file in a specific mode. In order to open your file, you need to fix a mode and then do your whatever you want to do, either read or write operation, and then after read or write operation, you close your file. Closing means you are freeing your file to be used by another stream or another program or another user. So the operation of a file operation is considered that, think about that, you have an active pointer. For instance, when you type in something on a MS Word or on any text editor, so there is, we see that this is a blinking cursor. Say that right? It is a blinking cursor. We see the blinking cursor. As long as you see a blinking cursor, you can write over there. So if you do not see any blinking cursor, you cannot write. You cannot type in something. Whatever, even if you type in using your keyboard, that will not be inserted over there. So think about, like, there is a, when we do a file operation, there will be a cursor. That pointer will be moving from whatever you like, from top to bottom, or even you can do right bottom to up. Usually it goes top to bottom. You can read by character, one character at a time, or one word at a time, or one line at a time. So there are three basic operation that you can read character by character, one character at a time, or one word at a time, or one line at a time. There are some existing methods in the file input output stream classes that we use those methods in order to do our file input and output operations. So when I said, when I actually by default all of the data or whatever you have in a file are considered as a string, as a long string, very long string. For instance, there is a string that contains all of the contents, everything in this file, starting from this F character to the end, or like this character, very tiny. And when you scan a character by character, so then every character is considered. Scan, even the space. But when you scan or read by word, then there are some separators in order to separate the words. So as usually we know, the space is a separator. In programming language, it is called delimiter. It's called delimiter. Somehow it should have it called delimiter. Oh, yeah. So a delimiter can be a space, or sometimes it can be a comma, or it can be a full stop, or it can be a semicolon, or whatever character you assign. If you do not assign anything, by default it is space. We will see how to use or assign these delimiters. Okay, it's called file structure. A file can contain any type of data. For instance, a file can contain, okay. So for instance, if sometime most of the data files, data file can be an Excel data file. It can be a db file, database file. It can be Excel, that means XLS file. It can be text file, txt, or it can be in Excel. There is another format is called CSV format, comma separated version. Sometimes, most of the time, in order to store data within a shortcut way or in a short file, so people use most of the programming languages allowed to use either text type data file, text txt, in simple format. But it is possible to put a rich type format, for instance, doc format or docx format. Sometimes, for instance, if you see this is a part, these are the part two lines of a data file. So actually, it is a comma separated file. This database. So this one, the comma between two characters. You see, there is no space between this, but there is a comma. So then is delimiter is comma. So then when you see a comma, when the scanner finds a comma, then what it will do, it will assign this one, consider this one as a field value. And after this comma, it will consider another cell value. And after this comma, it will consider another cell value. After this comma, it will consider another cell value. So, for instance, if this is a file for an airlines company, so their program will understand this is the flight number. This is the, maybe they will understand this is the origin airport. This is the destination airport. Maybe they will understand this number of passengers. Maybe average ticket price, something like this. So these structures is unique, mostly defined for its own program, according to program purpose. So this is not an universal structure, okay, but this structure is developed or designed for its own purpose that will be understood by this program, by its own program. So if you write a data file, if you create a file for your own purpose, you will create as your per your need. That might be different than another data file structure. So that means every programs or application create or build their own file structure. There are some common rules how to create structures, but there is no common format for all that all airlines company will use this format. It's not necessary. This is a code snippet for just we discussed that there are three major steps of a file operation: opening a file or creating a data file, reading or writing on it, and closing. So this structure it says just either opening and closing. Okay, so then for its opening, for opening a file, you see that there are two streams data streams are used over here. One is for stream reader, another is called stream writer. Reader is used, a stream reader is used if you want to read something from an existing file. Then we need to use stream reader. Actually, this code is in C# mode. Okay, and then writing, you will use a writer, stream writer. That means when you want to write something in a file. So according to your purpose, you definitely need to use exact either file reader or file writer stream or reader stream. If you intended to read something, but if you open the file with a writer stream, it will not work. Okay, so then after working with your file, that you should and you must close your file. That so far now you are familiar with with exception handling, right? So exception handling is an important part that will be implemented in file input output operation. So you have to implement your knowledge of exception handling while you do file input output operation. For instance, maybe so far you have understood, you have guessed that you have to put your, like for instance, your file opening, these statements within a try block, right? So because we need to put this some codes in the try block, because it may happen that you are intended to open a file but the file does not exist, or the file exists but that is being used by another application or another program. So a file cannot be simultaneously used by more than one program or more than one application. So unless that program releases that file, you cannot use that. So some of the codes you need to put in try-catch block, and one of the more code that you should put in the closing operation, you put in the finally block. Whether you open a file or even if you forget, that your code will close your file. That should put in this close statement you should put in final block. But these are some codes. These are some codes, but these codes are not complete, so you cannot use this. But I will show you with some live codes how to create a file and how to open a file and how to read from that file. So in the input or output stream classes, there are some existing methods. For instance, there is a print writer class. That class has the print method. You know the print method in Java, whatever you frequently use. There are several variations of this print methods. Variations means these are called method overloading, right? So print method is already overloaded with some existing. So you see that this is a This is a structure with integer type argument. This is double type argument. This is string type argument. Okay, at least 3 different signatures. of the print method. Similarly, this is true for the println method. You are familiar with print and println method. So I discussed this. It's a good practice to close a method. However, especially if you will be opening a number of files or opening same file in multiple times. So these are the tips. Actually, it says calling the close method is optional when the program finishes executing. All its resource of any unclosed file will be released. But although it is optional to close the file, but it may happen that you may sometimes deal only part of an application. If your application contains many modules, then it is a good practice to close a file when it is done. We will see this soon in the program, and let us see. So this code is in C# code. So people who are taking C# lab should be familiar with this, right? You should be familiar with this, but this is the line. Actually, this is might be unfamiliar with you. This is white not. Okay, this SR string not end of string. I will discuss this. It says end of string. Yes.
How do we know what line is reading? Like, okay, so it says X is converting whatever we're reading to an integer. How do you define what line we're reading?
We will go through the program. Okay, that's a good question. So this is not a complete program. Actually, this program is not a complete program. So I cannot explain from here. When I discuss with the complete program, I will discuss that. This code is in Java. This code snippet is in Java. Java has a hasNext method. This is for in the scanner class. In the Java scanner class, there are some methods: next, next integer, next double, next float, some existing methods that are used to scan whatever you will be inputting next time. So here it says that part of your question and the answer I can say that when it says while hasNext, that means while it is not at the end of the file, then whatever it is next line it is inserting, is getting next line, scanning the next line, it is putting that in a line string, and that string, okay, is another. This is a string data. Anybody can. I think this. What is this here? What is the data type over here? Yes, it's an array of a string. Here string, but this is an array symbol, right? This data will be an array of string that is composed by generated by lines, some lines. This line variable is coming from this line, previous line. Whatever this previous line is scanning line by line, one line is going to the the whatever it is scanning, that value is going to line, and the line by line whatever are scanning, all are going to in a data array, string array. So that means this data, this variable here, it contains multiple strings. For instance, it might be like this. It might be an array. This is my data array. It will contain string. For instance, first time you can say hello. Second line it may find my, say friend, say how are you, for instance, this way. So these are the code in C#. So these are some code snippets. The first line here, this is complete method. A method, this called load data. This method is found using a stream reader, SR, and that is reading from a data file. The data file name is data.txt. Okay, and it has one delimiter array, character type of array, but it has only one element. So it is separating characters or words, actually separating words by two data fields by a comma. And you see that while loop says that info not equal to null. Then it is getting data and splitting by comma, and it is putting something. So you will not understand at this point by looking this code snippet, but I will show you. I will go from the top to bottom in a live program. Okay, so I have gone through the last slide. So this is the last slide we do have, but now I want to go through with some live programs. How do we? So I think so far you have some superficial idea about why we do need to use data file and what are the steps to access data from a data file, and you may have idea that there are some existing methods, then you need to use this. And by using your existing method, you may create your own method. Today I am going to show with some Java programs, but in our next class I will try to show these programs in C#. Okay. This is a pretty straightforward, very simple program. Let us try to understand this. Okay. So what this program will do? So in the first line, okay, you see that we have used file writer. We name the file writer object as fr equal to new file writer, and I put the file name I am intended to open, to create, okay, as test.doc. Okay, so remember that, look at that here, before test.dot I just put a very simple way, that is dot then slash. There is a significant importance of using this dot. Okay, I will show you. I will show you soon. And this is actually in the file writer. I put print writer. Okay. I created the object as PR, and that PR is linked with this fr, file writer. That means whatever I will print, that means I will type in using my code is not completed yet. Okay, whatever I will send some data from my print writer object, that will ultimately go to the file writer, and file writer will be linked with this test.doc file. So that means if I write some other code, that means my data will be going to this data file. These two lines is the very simplified code to understand the link between a file writer and a print writer. We need both. Print writer is needed in order to, whatever you print using your keyboard, okay, to send that to the file writer. Through the file writer, that text will be going to your data file. So without using your files, your print stream, you cannot directly send data to your file. You need to send data to your file via this print writer class. So we have print writer, that object. Then later we see pr dot. There are some existing methods in the print writer class. We will use those methods. You see that there are some methods. It says append character C to the print writer. This append method is defined within print writer class. There are some other methods. You see there are other methods. There are some other methods. We will go through this later. Okay. So far we just, in this course, there's just 2 lines. We want to discuss that in order to do file operation, you need 2 things. You need to use file stream and a data stream. These will be linked internally. And at the end of your operation, you need to close your file. Just closing a file is very simple. You need to use file stream object dot close. And you see that I have used in Java in this throws IO exception. We need to use this, otherwise your program will create an error. If you see that, if I use this, do not use this, then I have 2 methods. This method is complaining, and as well as this method is complaining. So either I can put this course within try-catch block, or in Java I can use throws keyword. Okay, so far good. You got an idea that we need to use both file stream and data stream. This is actually input output stream, and this is also file stream. Okay, now let us see if we run this program. If we run this program, there is nothing, no print line, so I cannot see any. Apparently it says that there is no output, but I have output. It created a test.doc file in my current folder. Where is my current folder? In CSE1322S02L26 section. You see that? This is the folder. This is the file just created. You see test.doc. It just created. When it was created? 108, right? It is 109 a minute ago. If I even delete it, or let me name it, make it different name. test.txt. And you see that I do not have any file name like this name. So if I run this, it creates this file. So far this file is empty, right? It does not have any data. So we did not put any data over here, because we just created this file and closed that file. So in order to write some data in our file, we need to put some other operations. That, for instance, this we will discuss this in our next class. Okay. Thank you so much.